we alive? Yes, we are. Alrighty. Fantastic. Quit that back up. There you go. So we've been down to bronze tier 1, which is not good. However, since I was last live, I now have a couple of pretty decent decks I can use in competitive. I have a dinosaur deck. I have a soldier deck. What else? What else? I have gold? No. So that'll be cool. Let's see what kind of stuff I can get with gold. I want one of these. But it's gonna be probably next. But then you shall be the next round of cosmetics. Cause I do want some cosmetics, but I'm not gonna
You
pay
have
actual
two
money.
ranks, one for constructed
Yes,
and
I
one
know.
for limited. Your constructed rank is affected by ranked games,
Kinda
while
sounds
your
like the
limited
13th
rank is
Doctor.
tied to draft and sealed events. And this is where you'll find options on how to customize your look. You can also choose your avatar and more.
Shit, yeah, hold on. Mm. I added an extra E. Okay. I have three that I'm comfortable using, possibly for in ranked games. I mean, we're just I'm bronze right now, so it doesn't really matter at this point. I don't think you can lose your rank. I think it's only in silver. It's when you can start losing rank. But I got to silver one. I was silver one, and then I dropped a lot. It was bad. It was really bad. I'm good with this. I'm good with this. Starting hand. Kill 7. I think I stacked the friendly Grim. I think I did. Pretty sure I did. Alright. Dope. Burning Sun Cavalry. Why didn't that one get tagged? Oh, okay. Pocket Stitcher. Hello, Pocket. It won't kill it. That's unfortunate. Don't mind if I do. Please lock. Please. Ah. Didn't lock. Oh well. Huh. Okay, that's weird. I don't think I like that at all. I'll hit it for 5. Oh, 6. Yeah, that's right. No, I want to see how what it transforms into. Do I not see what it transforms into? I'll have to look at it when I am done with this, because I think I have these. Pretty sure I do. Oh, jeez. Wow, okay. A lot of little guys. Oh, if I have End of Festivities, that would be so good right now. But I don't have End of Festivities, unfortunately. However, put it on the battlefield. Ooh. However, I want to do this. I want to get rid of that. This is a token creation deck, and I don't want to. That's scary. That is definitely very scary. You control die. Create a fungus dinosaur equal to the total power of those creatures. So I think if I do that, it's gonna be a pretty decent dinosaur, I'm thinking. If I do that. No. Maybe I'll figure it out. Another one? A decent counted over here. That's so cool. That's actually really cool. Now if I could just get a card that has like whenever a dinosaur creature enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on this thing. Oh, they don't have Decade in it. Oh my, they don't have Decade anymore because of Pocket Factory. Okay. Wow. Okay. So I need that card in my zombie deck. Then Poppet Stitcher. I can concede it. It's fine. It's fine. Even though it's a ranked, I don't lose anything. So it's fine. I can. I need Poppet Stitcher in my zombie deck. I don't know if I'm gonna take out though. I have it, right? Yeah, I do. No. Transform Pocket Factory? Does it transform back into a human wizard? I don't know, I kinda like the Waterwind Scout. It's a fell horseman that isn't really. But I like how you can. The Deathly Ride isn't bad. Deathly Ride's pretty good. It's another take from the graveyard. Man. Almost everything has its place. Why the Necromash? Do I need that card? Oh, no, actually, I'm getting rid of Council of Echoes. I don't think it works with the deck I have. So, figure that out. I mean, considering how often I see Council of Echoes, that should be a pretty good, switch. Already? Wow, okay. I don't know if I want to show my win condition this early though. That's the problem. But at the same time, might as well. You know what's funny? I can I don't know. I have the chocolate song from Wonka stuck in my head. I haven't even seen that movie. I just hear the music on TikTok all the time. All the time. The sacrifice creature's toughness. That's funny. So if I want to, I can get a 3/3 flying zombie that doesn't have decayed. Hmm. Pretty good card. I really like this card. Land card, create Twitter token, creature card, 1/1 insect creature. Ah. Creature token doesn't have flying. We're golden. We're golden. Now if you can only get the champion of the dead out here, that would be awesome. That would be really cool. But for the time being, I think we're gonna get rid of this. I feel like that's gonna get rid of a lot of our problems. And since, I don't know, he probably doesn't have anything to kill it with. Oh man, I should have, if I can, the next time I can, I'm gonna hit this, ability up. Sacrifice that zombie. Yeah, 3/3 flying zombie creature token. Perfect. And we have Crawl from the Cellar. So I can so I can do it again. Let's do this again. Oh, I'll target this one. Then I will place a zombie. Immediately sacrifice it. Again. Get another 3/3 zombie. Watch this. Watch this. Do it again. Get the creature zombie out again. Do that. And play it again and be ready to do it all over again next time. But I don't think there will be a next time because I'm hitting it for 9. Yeah, there will be a next time, I guess. That's fine. That's not fine! Uh-oh! Uh-oh! That's not fine. But I think I still win overwhelming numbers. I mean, I have Call from the Cellar, so I can... Doesn't really matter, but like... I feel like I can just hit him for... Yeah. Honestly, if I do this... Probably can't do anything. Yeah. That was very unfortunate. I haven't done that strategy yet, but it was the I had a really good hand. That was wild. That was really cool. That was a good play. I'm really happy about that play. Black and green spells. Oh look, I have to do this anyway for the gold. 4,000. Is there a new set coming out soon? We got new set when April 20. MTC release schedule. Here we go. Mothers of Kala Manor? So, Evanica Remastered. Reprints. These are reprints. First premiere. Sleuthing Detectives, Hidden Identities, Hidden Code. Themed Clue Edition. Fallout is getting a pack? It's crazy. Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Assassin's Creed? That's crazy. House of Horror. But that has nothing to do with Magic Arena. New set release date. How about that? Alright. I know that. What about Arena? Doctor Who? Right? No way, timey-wimey is a card. That's crazy. What? The 10th Doctor aligns you whenever you attack exile cards from the top of your library? Huh. That's wild. Commander deck. Doctors 10, 9, 10, and 11? What about my favorite, 12? Wait, what is Tyler has? Wait, it's +1/+1 for each time counter on it. Bad Wolf. Whenever Rose Tyler attacks. Huh. I don't think that Is there a Doctor Who in here? No. Nope. But it doesn't. Ah, but I'm still mad. It's not getting me anything. I mean, not really. I know that there's gonna be a new pack. MTT Arena Zone. Ah, here we go. Here we go. MTT Arena. Not. I can probably just have looked at these, huh? Yeah. Alright. Well, I'm kinda silly. Haha. Ooh. Is it a video we can watch? Let's watch this video. Draft preview, standard review? We can watch both of them. Why not? The arena announcements. An update on last week's update. With these previews, we have a pair of previews to help you get acquainted with the new set. I'm excited for this new set. I don't know about you.
Furthering the Karlov Manor is just around the corner. We're going to talk about some cards that you should know about before you jump into your first drafts. Welcome, everybody. My name's Alex. You might know me from my stream or from my podcast, Limited Level Ups. I make content to help people get better at Limited Magic. And today we're going to go through some top commons and uncommons in this set to prepare you for your first drafts, as well as some cards that I think are just kind of fun. As we're talking about the new cards, we're going to talk about some new mechanics as well, so you can get to know the set.
New mechanics, that's awesome. I'm excited about the new mechanics.
Headliner of the set, and that's Disguise. And you might know Disguise.
Disguise?
With Morph before. We just had Cons of Tarkir on Arena, and that was a Morph format. This is a Disguise format. And just like Morphs, you can play a creature with Disguise, and you might know Disguise if you to prepare you for your first drafts, as well as some cards that I think are just kind of fun. As we're talking about the new cards, we're going to talk about some new mechanics as well, so you can get to know the set a little bit better. And the first mechanic I want to talk about is the big one, kind of the headliner of the set, and that's Disguise. And you might know Disguise if you played with Morph before. We just had Cons of Tarkir on Arena, and that was a Morph format. This is a Disguise format, and just like Morphs, you can play a creature with Disguise face down.
Face down?
For 3 mana, but unlike Morphs, they have Ward 2, so no longer will your 3 mana 2/2 get killed by a simple shock. Now you have a little bit of protection. And the first group of cards I think is really important to talk about is this cycle of 10 gold.
What the hell? Alright, let's take a look at all these. Let's take a look at all these real quick. Cloud Control Wooden. That's another soldier I can put in my... No. Enter the battlefield Earth. Face up. Oh, all of these have Disguise. Okay. X is the number of other creatures you control. That's wild. Dogwalker. Turn face up to create tapped one dog tokens. Interesting. Maybe he'll talk about it. No, he's not gonna talk about it. Or maybe he will. I don't know.
Gold cards we have common that all have disguise, and I say gold cards instead of like Fairy Snoop here, but it's not really gold if you squint just right, because you could put this in a
Yeah, he's right.
white
He's
blue,
right.
right? If you just cast it on turn 3 for its disguise cost, you can flip it up for 1 blue next turn, and hey, you don't actually need black mana to cast this card. So all of these cards are very flexible in draft, right? Usually you don't want to take a gold card too early in the draft because that kind of limits your decisions, it locks you into that color pair. But taking these disguise cards is actually pretty flexible because, yeah, it's great if you can cast your Fairy Snoop in your blue-black deck, but it's also totally fine if you just want to put it in your blue-white deck. So they're very flexible picks, and they're all pretty good.
Oh shit.
All right, next up, we're going to go color one flexible pure display in draft.
So I can put the Cloud Control Warden in my soldier deck. I'll just play the disguise. It's the same thing. That's right. That's actually really cool. Okay. Whoa. Now I have to look back into this. Alright. I understand now. Okay. I understand. So you can put it in the like green white deck, but you can also put it in your mono white mono green deck as well. And apparently yeah. Green's indestructible until when Rakis Scoundrel enters the battlefield and is turned face up, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. But its disguise cost is a lot more. I see. Riftburst Hellion. 6/7. That's wild. Sanguine Favor, turn face up. Lifelink, perfect. Deals any damage. Doesn't Joe fix it? Never crocodile, undercover crocodile. Crocodile? Crocodile? That's wild. Let's investigate.
Don't want to take a gold card too early in the draft because that kind of limits your decisions, it locks you into that color pair. But taking these disguise cards is actually pretty flexible because, yeah, it's great if you can cast your Fairy Snoop in your blue-black deck, but it's also totally fine if you just want to put it in your blue-white deck. So they're very flexible picks, and they're all pretty good cards. All right, next up, we're going to go color by color. I picked out a few commons and uncommons for each color that I think are strong cards that will pull you into their color early on in the draft. I've also picked out a few cards that I think are pretty fun to build around. Starting with white, we've got Novice Inspector, and longtime players will know this as a functional reprint of Thraben Inspector. And Thraben Inspector was a great card back in its format. It's seen constructed play too, and it also introduces us to the Investigate mechanic, which is a pretty simple one. Creatures will have enter the battlefield effects that say Investigate, or maybe you'll have a spell that says do something and investigate. And when you investigate, you make a clue token, which is an artifact token that you can pay 2 mana, sacrifice, and draw a card. So just a 1 mana 1/2 that draws you a card later in the game. Fantastic. But also has some artifacts if your deck cares about that, and the token that you can pay 2 mana, sacrifice, and when you investigate, you make a clue token, which is an artifact token that you can pay 2 mana to sacrifice and draw a card. So just a 1 mana 1/2 that draws you a card later in the game. Fantastic. But also
1 mana 1/2. That's pretty good.
Your deck cares about that, and Detective is an important creature type in this set. You'll see some detective typal cards going around, and a 1-drop like Novice Inspector starting the game, perfect for that.
Love
Speaking
that.
of detectives, which by the way is the blue-white archetype in the set, we've got Inside Source. And a little kind of cheat code for evaluating cards in Limited is any creature that makes 2 bodies, and you're getting reasonable stats, is going to be a pretty good creature. And
Yeah.
Insight Source not only gives you a 1/1 plus a 2/2 for 3 mana, but also the ability to pump that 2/2 or your other detectives. The last white common I want to talk about is a pretty simple one, but a pretty powerful one. It's Makeshift Binding. And usually they print these kind of cards at uncommon, these enchantments that come in and exile a creature, but they shifted this one down to common for this set. And don't overlook that 2 life. That 2 life's gonna matter in a lot of games. And an uncommon I want to call it that I think is really cool and really fun is Case of Pilfered Proof. Which brings us to another mechanic, by the way, cases. These are enchantments that have the subtype case. And if you haven't seen these before, the way these work are, when you play a case, that first ability at the top, that's always going to be there. As long as the case is on the battlefield, it's either going to be a static ability, maybe it's to enter the battlefield effect, and then you have to solve the mystery. This is a mystery set, of course. So to solve, it'll give you a condition, and if you've met that condition, the game checks on your end step, and if you did solve the case, you get the solved bonus at the bottom. And that bonus is going to stick around just like the top one for as long as you have the case on the battlefield. And in the case of Pilfered Proof, case, this is sort of a detective, but also a clue slash token build around. So you want a lot of detectives, you want a lot of tokens, which are going to come in the form of clues, but also just small creature tokens, and you can really go off with this card deck. Moving on to blue now, the first comment I want to talk about is Cold Case Cracker. So you've got a 4 mana 3/3 flyer, which is passable stat lines, but that death trigger when this dies, make a blue token, really nice, because when you play this on turn 4, your opponent's not really going to want to attack into it. And then if they go, okay, I don't want to attack into it, I don't want to give you a clue token, you then start attacking the back for 3 every turn, and eventually, they're going to have to point a removal spell at this thing. So just a pretty good value creature all around. Then we've got Dramatic Activation. I really like this design. We've seen these kind of blue tap a thing. They don't.
I like that. That's really cool.
Middling. You know, the problem with these cards generally is they don't get rid of abilities. Your opponent can have a passive ability on the battlefield, and this card doesn't deal with that. But that ability, blue, shuffle that card back into your opponent's deck, really solves that problem. So a pretty good blue removal spell. The last
hold on.
Into your opponent's deck really solves that problem. So a pretty good blue.
Yeah, that's really cool. Whoa, okay. Yeah.
The last blue comment I want to call out is Deduce. And Deduce is the kind of card that you're going to take early and then just play as many cards as you possibly can. I mean, some players will. It depends how much you like drawing cards. I can't stop you from putting as many Deduces as you want in your deck. But I want to call this one out because it's a little unassuming, right? Looks fine, doesn't look that amazing, but 2 mana to draw a card and then get another card later for another 2 mana. You're kind of banking that away in the clue. A really nice blue card if you care about spells, if you care about artifacts.
I'm going to make a clue.
And then a really
I'm making the clue deck called Whodunit.
Looking at the full set, this is the card the number one card that stuck out to me as, wow, that's sweet, I want to do this. I was just talking about people who like drawing a lot of cards, and if you really like drawing a lot of cards, you know you have to worry sometimes about just decking.
I have ideas swimming in my head.
Stop you from decking out if you've drawn a bunch of cards, but it also turns into a threat that is going to end the game very, very quickly. You can enable this by drawing.
So you would draw a card, but you likely have a card in it, right? Skip that draw instead. I can't live in that card.
A lot of cards, or maybe just a little bit of self-mill, right? Just dumping a bunch of cards from your library into your graveyard, getting to 0 as quickly as you can, and then turning this thing on. Moving on to black now, I think it would be a big injustice if there was a set with murder in its name that didn't reprint murder. This one's a classic.
Yes! We're getting murder back!
Another black common I want to
We're getting murder back!
I'm pretty sure this one's going to be underrated for a while.
Yes! Yes! No more go for the throat. No more Hero's Demise. We're getting murder back. I remember this card. I love the murder. I love murder.
Just a solid removal spell. You're never going to be sad about that. Another black
I
comment
love murder, guys. I love it.
The radar. I'm pretty sure this one's going to be underrated for a while. Is Toxic Analysis. So for a single black mana, you can give a creature Death Touch and Lifelink. So
wow.
The creature you're trade, you're going to get a little bit of life. And if it was just that, I'd be like, okay, don't love the
Toxin Analysis.
But tacking on Investigate as well, that's a huge deal.
You get 3 for 1 mana? That's insane. You get Death Touch and Lifelink, which automatically is going into my World Undead card deck. I mean, I have so many things that would benefit with Lifelink and Death Touch. And then I get a mana, like a card after? It's crazy.
Not only are you going to sometimes win combats, you attack your 3-4 into their 3-4, they block, you cast this, you gain 3, kill their thing, yours stays alive, but you also get to draw a card, make a token in the process. Really not a lot to hate about this card. And then some black uncommon. So Undercity Eliminator, a 5-mana 3/3 that comes and just eats something, just exiles just straight up. Yes, you've got to sacrifice a creature or a token, but this set is just littered with tokens. There's gonna be some games you're gonna have so many clues that you're just not gonna be able to crack.
Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Oh no! Get rid of one of my creature tokens.
Well, you really don't mind feeding it to the Undercity Eliminator here. Even if you only have one clue, this is just a great deal. If this comes in, you get a 3/3 and you get to exile something.
Yeah.
And one other cool black uncommon to point out here is Presumed Dead. We see these kinds of cards in black from time to time. Pump your creature and then it comes back if it dies. But you also...
So end of time, attack a creature +2. Suspected?
You get to suspect it when it comes back, and this is a new mechanic. If a creature is suspected, that creature can't block and has menace. And one cool thing I want to point out about this card is it interacts very well with your disguise creatures, because you can put a disguise creature down for 3 mana, cast a Presumed Dead on it in combat, and then it comes back flipped up. So you're gonna get a big mana advantage, get your big creature back, and often win a combat. Jump into red now, a pretty simple one. Galvanize, 2 mana, deal 3. These are always really good, but Galvanize can even do more than that. Your 2 mana spell, sometimes gonna be able to kill a 5-drop or a 6-drop if you crack a clue. And then kind of a funny one here, Gearbane Orangutan. So you got a 3 mana 2/2 reach, but... Not
the Zozo Bazaar Adventure Orangutan. No, not that at all. Come on, man.
You can either have it come in and kill an artifact, which is either a clue, or there's quite a few artifact creatures in this set. So sometimes it just comes in and kills a creature. And if there's none of that going on, you can sacrifice one of your artifacts to put 2 counters on it. So you've got a 3 mana 4/4 reach. So pretty good deal on either mode. I really like this one. I know some red uncommons. Cornered Crook, very powerful card. Kind of like the Undercity Eliminator, actually. 5 mana 5/4. It's a little bit bigger.
5/4?
But if you sacrifice an artifact, you get to deal 3 to any target. So often it's going to kill something, or you can send it at your opponent's face. Just a very powerful card. Anything that comes in,
that's
deals
fine.
damage, kills something.
Pretty good.
Those kind of cards in Limited tend to be very, very powerful. And another case here, Case of the Burning Mask. So this is a 3 mana, deal 3. And to solve this case, 3 or more sources you control have to have dealt damage, which isn't that hard. That counts creatures. It doesn't have to be a burn spell, but it could include a burn spell. You can burn an opponent's creature, attack with your 2 creatures, get to solve this case, and if you solve it, you exile the top 3 cards of your library and you can play one of them. So you can jump through these hoops, which aren't that many hoops to jump through. You get a 3 mana deal 3, kill a creature, and then draw a card with some selection. A really powerful card. Closing this out here, we've got green. And green's first comment I want to talk about is Vitu-Ghazi.
Give me some
dinosaurs.
dinosaurs.
The reason I call this one out is it highlights another new mechanic. Evidence. You can think of collecting evidence sort of like a kicker cost, but instead of paying additional mana, you have to exile cards from your graveyard as a cost. And it cares about the mana cost of the cards you exile. So for example, for Vitu-Ghazi Inspector here, it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may collect evidence 6. So that means you exile cards from your graveyard whose mana value equals 6. You can exile 1 6-drop, 2 3-drops, 3 2-drops, doesn't matter. And when you do, this comes in with 2 counters and you gain 2 life. And you're gonna see a bunch of cards that care about evidence. For example, we've got Chalk outlined here, a pretty nice build around uncommon. Every time a creature leaves your graveyard, you make a 2/2 and you investigate. So a lot of value. If you're into value, if you like to use value, draw a bunch of cards, know myself, getting a bunch of
there was another thing earlier in the video with like
really good build around for those decks.
+1 or +2 to all the tap things you control.
So usually when we see land cyclers, the green one goes and gets a forest, the blue one goes and gets an island, but this one's different. This is actually the only land cycler in the set, and it just has basic land cycling. So you can go get any basic land, helps fix your mana, and the really cool thing, you might have pieced this together already, but in your decks that care about evidence, this is a 2 mana thing you can dump in the graveyard and have 6 mana value worth of evidence for.
Ooh, okay.
And then one more card
I see
that also helps fix your mana. If you're somebody who likes to draft these like multicolor green decks, 3, 4, 5 color decks,
I'm not into draft. I'm just into looking at all these cards.
You play it as a 2 mana 2/2 if you need to, but if you can wait a little bit, disguise it first, flip it up on turn 4, draws you a land of your choice. Really solid card. And that's all we've got. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you feel a little bit more prepared for your first draft. Or
not yet.
Murders at Karlov Manor
Not at
will be
all.
available on Arena on February 6th, but if you want to play it a little bit before that, your local game stores will be having events, pre-release events, from February 2nd to February 4th.
February 6th?
We'll see you next time.
February 6th? That's taking 5 days. Alright. Oh. Yeah, I watch spas all the time. Yeah. We don't have to talk about that. I will be right back. I have to go pee-pees. And we are back. Alrighty. Hello. Wrong one. Hello. Hello. Alrighty. So, I'm excited. Now we're talking about standard preview. I did not realize this was gonna be 30 minutes. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm interested, so
What's up and welcome everyone to a new video here on the official NTG Arena YouTube channel. My name is Ashlizzle, and for those not familiar, I'm a Magic the Gathering content creator known for building fun and competitive decks in Standard. And today we'll be having a look at the new cards from Murders at Cardiff Manor and how they could impact the Standard format. Now, I'll be going over the best 5 cards in each color that I think will see the most play and what decks you could play them in.
Best 5
We'll
cards.
also briefly talk about the lands. And definitely let me know in the comments what your favorite cards are from Murders at Cardiff Manor, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now before we get started, I just want to clarify that there's a card, instead 5 cards, on some of order. They are just the 5 cards from the color that I think will see the most play in Standard. And we're starting off strong because white seems like the most powerful color in the set. Now up first we have a case of the Gateway Express. Now this card is a case card, which is a new mechanic, and cases are quest-like enchantments with 3 abilities. The top ability is always active, the middle is the condition you need to meet to solve the case, and the bottom is the reward you get once you solve it. The described condition must be true as your end step begins. Now that the case is solved, the middle ability won't trigger again. Additionally, the last ability becomes active. If that ability is an activated ability, it can now be activated, and if it's a triggered ability, it can now trigger. If it's a static ability, that ability now functions.
Perfect.
So Case of the Gateway Express is a 2-mana enchantment case. The first ability is, when this case enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals 1 damage to that creature. To solve it, you have to have 3 or more creatures attack this turn, and once it's solved, the creatures you control get +1, +0. Now, I think this will be a solid card in white go white decks.
That's
like
so
Stormtrance,
good!
White Weenies, or Boros Convoke. Like, just imagine this
White
card combined with a
Weenies?
card like Gleeful Demolition. I think it's very easy to solve, and
What
the
does
first
White
ability will
Weenies
always
mean?
remove something in the right deck. The last ability especially seems valuable in Go White aggro decks. It just does a whole lot of good things for 2 mana, and I love it. Now next up we have Dalny's Streetwise
2
Lookout.
mana is
This is a
wild.
3
That's
mana,
crazy.
2/2 legendary creature human scout that reads, creatures you control with power 2 or less can be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. And if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Now this kind of needs to be a build around, but it already has great synergy with a lot of creatures played in Standard. Think of cards like Brutal Cathar, Deep Cavern Bat, Preacher of the Schism, Resolute Reinforcements, Squee, Charming Scoundrel, and I can name at least 20 more creatures. The static effect is also a nice bonus. Alright, then we have Doorkeeper Thrall, a 2 mana
It's
1/2
like the
creature
Wandering
with flash
Throne,
flying,
but
and
less
artifacts and
powerful.
creatures entering the battlefield don't cost abilities to trigger. Now this card is a sweet cyber card for white decks.
Ooh.
I love the fact that it has flash, and stopping ETB effects is super valuable in the current Standard. Like, this Thrall basically shuts down all creatures that Domain plays. It shuts down Discovers, it shuts down the Bat, and many more cards. And this makes it just the perfect sideboard card. Now up next we have Novice Inspector, which is basically Thraben Inspector, but with a different name. And this card is a 1 mana 1/2 human detective creature that when it enters the battlefield it investigates. And when you investigate, you create a clue token, which is a colorless artifact token. But when you
I
pay
wanna
2
make a
and
clue
sacrifice the
deck.
artifact, you draw a card. Now this card easily slots into decks that care about having artifacts, has fantastic synergy with Gleeful Demolition for instance in Boros Convoke, and great synergy with cards like Warden of the Inner Sky. It's just a good 1-drop human, and just like Thraben Inspector, this card is going to be great. It's definitely a fantastic pickup for Boros Convoke in Standard.
That's
And the
really
last
cool.
card in my picks for 5 best white cards for Standard Constructed is 10th District Hero. Now this is a 2 mana 2/3 creature human with 2 activated abilities. The first activated ability you have to pay 2 for and collect evidence 2. Then 10th District Hero becomes a human detective with base power and toughness 4/4 and gains vigilance. And then the second activated ability,
okay.
which requires you to pay 3 mana and collect evidence 4, reads, if 10th District Hero is a detective, it becomes a legendary creature named Mileva the Stalwart. It has base power and toughness 5/5 and gains other creatures you control have indestructible. So this is just a powerful and versatile 2-drop creature. It's a great mana sink, and getting to the final activated ability seems crazy good.
That's
as it would give your other
good.
creatures indestructible. Having a base power and toughness of 2/3 is also
That's
just great. I can
good.
see a lot of white creature decks wanting this creature, and especially the ones that care about having humans as well. Okay, it's time to move on to blue. Now, blue doesn't seem like it's going to be as impactful. in the
Alright,
current
let's
meta
see if
as
I
the
can
cards mentioned
put
before,
any of
but there's
these
still
in
some
my
good stuff
zombie
in there.
deck.
Now, first up in blue, we have Case of the Filch Falcon, which is a 1 mana enchantment case, and when it enters the battlefield, you investigate. In order to solve the case, you have to control 3 or more artifacts.
No, I don't think
and
this
once
will
it's
be a
solved, you
good
can pay
one,
3
because I don't
mana to
have
sacrifice
any
the case,
artifacts
and
in my
for
deck.
1/1 counters on target non-creature artifact, it becomes a 0/0 bird creature with flying in addition to its other types. First of all, I love the fact that this
That
is
is a
1
really
mana
good
permanent that puts another permanent on the
thing,
board,
though.
and it's going to be a very nice pickup for artifact decks like blue-white artifacts or Simic artifacts. I like the
Yeah.
fact that the solved ability animates one of your artifact tokens that's laying around and gives it flying and counters to that token, which also has amazing synergy with Zoetic Cliff, which artifact decks are already playing as well. Now, I'm quite a fan of this card, and for 1 mana it does a lot and will be a sweet
really
pickup for
does.
artifact decks. Up next, we have Forensic Researcher, a 3 mana 1/3 merfolk detective creature with 2 activated abilities. For the first activated ability, you need to tap your Researcher, and when you do that, you can untap another target permanent you control. And the second ability,
That's
you
not
need to
bad.
also tap your Researcher, collect evidence 3, and then you can tap target creature you don't control. So, believe it or not, but this card has an infinite combo going for it in Standard, because 2 Forensic Researchers and a Deeproot Pilgrimage can create infinite tokens. You tap your Forensic Researcher to untap your
Oh,
other
shit.
Forensic Researcher, and while you're tapping these merfolk, your Deeproot Pilgrimage will give you a merfolk token anytime you tap one of them.
That's
It reminds me
crazy.
quite a bit of this Curry Oak combo for those that are familiar, but perhaps you can give this haste, or you can try and dodge both
Merfolk
wipes.
deck?
And this is where Fodalian Hexcatcher can come in clutch for merfolk. Now,
There's
this
a
definitely
lot of
needs to be a new
merfolk.
build, but I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up seeing standard play in one way or another. Up next, we have Intrude on the Mind, a 5-mana instant that reads, reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Create a 0/0 colorless top tier artifact creature token with flying, and then put 1/1 counters on it for each card put into the graveyard this way. This seems like a card control players will love. It gives you a blocker at instant speed and reminds me a tiny bit of Shark Typhoon. You usually get at least 2 cards off this, mill 3 and create a 3/3 top tier. But you can also get a lot more creative with it, and in the heat of the moment, give your opponent the choice between you drawing 5 cards or creating a 5/5 flyer. It's just a really cool card. And then we have Cryptic Code, a 3-mana artifact equipment, and this card uses the Cloak mechanic. And the Cloak mechanic puts a card onto the battlefield face down as a colorless 2/2 creature with no name, no creature type, and ward 2. You can then turn the cloaked creature face up anytime you have priority if it's a creature card for its mana cost or disguise cost if that's relevant. So this card creates a 3/2 with ward 2 for you for 3 mana that cannot be blocked. You can then pay the mana cost to turn it face up at any point if it's a creature. Now I like that this is an artifact too, and you can also return it to your hand, which can be a very powerful recursive threat in top deck situations. I also think it can be very powerful to cloak random creatures from your deck and catch your opponent off guard by turning them face up. Now there's a lot of cards that could go in this last slot, but I ended up going with Proph's Eidetic Memory, which is a 2-mana legendary enchantment that reads, when Proph's Eidetic Memory enters the battlefield, draw a card. You have no maximum hand size.
Not these
At the
cards
beginning of combat
again.
on your turn, if you've drawn more than 1 card this turn, put X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the number of cards you've drawn this turn -1. So I like that this card immediately triggers when you play it, since you will have drawn more than 1 card this turn before combat. I can see 1 or 2 copies played at best, but it can be sweet for like a blue tempo deck to buff up your threats, or maybe even in the blue-white mentor deck. I think it can
have
shine
the
in a
water
deck with
zombie,
few powerful
but
threats and a lot of cantrip effects. Now, unfortunately,
that's
this
so
is not really
situational.
routine because the drawing needs to happen before combat, and it can be likely that this is just an after rotation card, but it's sweet regardless. Alright, now it's time to move on to black. Now this one is quite
here we
tricky to
go.
select the cards for, as there's definitely more than 5 cards that we'll see play.
Here we
Black is one
go.
of my favorite colors in Magic, and I'm really excited about some of these. Now first up in black we have Illicit Masquerade, a 4-mana enchantment with flash that when it enters the battlefield you put an imposter counter on each creature you control. And
Among
whenever
Us?
a creature you control with an imposter counter on it dies, exile it, then return up to 1 other target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now this seems kind of insane in Reanimator decks. I see this in like a Golgari Reanimator deck with a lot of self-mill cards, or a Rakdos midrange deck with Inti and Bloodlight Harvester for instance, that wants to discard a Tali, or even a Traxa if you're feeling ambitious. And then at instant speed, you can flash in an Illicit Masquerade in response to removal or blockers happening and get yourself a big Reanimator target from the graveyard. Or even use some sacrifice effects to do it yourself, perhaps. This is a really good card, and at 4 mana and with flash, it has to be good, right? Up next, we have Deadly Cover-Up, a
That's
5-mana
good.
sorcery.
That's good.
And in order
I
to
like that
understand this
card.
card, we need to look at the new keyword that's called Collecting Evidence. Now, collecting evidence is a cost that you may be asked to pay in a variety of contexts. Each time you're asked to collect evidence, exile any number of cards from your graveyard with total mana value of the indicated number or greater. Now, Deadly Cover-Up is a 5-mana sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 6. Destroy all creatures. If evidence was collected, exile a card from an opponent's graveyard. Then search its owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the name and exile them. That player shuffles, then draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. So this is a 5-mana unconditional board wipe, which is just neat, but this card
Wow,
is really
a
great
board
if you collect
wipe.
evidence 6. It's basically a board wipe and a Necromantia in one, and you can even hit a basic land with this if it's in the graveyard. But realistically, this card taking out a Sholdred or the Traxa is just great already.
Yeah.
Perhaps this card can make a Dimir control deck or a mono black control deck pop up, but if anything, it'll be a sweet sideboard card in black decks. And up next, we have Long Goodbye, a 2-mana instant spell, and this spell can be countered. Destroy target creature or planeswalker
Can't
with
be
mana value
countered.
3 or less. Now this card is just a strictly better eliminate, which is awesome. And what I
Wow.
particularly like about this card is that it cannot be countered, which means that you don't have to pay the ward cost when you target a creature
That's
with ward,
awesome.
and that can be super relevant. For instance, look at Rafine. Now, there's a lot of 3-drops in standard, and I would be shocked if most black decks don't want to pick up a few copies of this fantastic removal spell.
That's
And
really
up next,
good.
we have
I
none
want
other
that
than
in
the
there.
Massacre Girl, Known Killer, a 4-mana 4/4 legendary creature human assassin with menace that reads creatures you control have wither. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. Now, Wither is a keyword that means that damage dealt to a creature by a source with Wither is dealt in the form of -1/-1 counters. Now, I think Massacre Girl is incredible and one of the best cards of the set. A 4-mana 4/4 with Menace is already great, but her ability is amazing. There's a lot of cards in Standard that work with ---- effects like Candy Grapple, Drown in Ichor, Virtue of Persistence, Black Sun's Twilight, and more that would all trigger Massacre Girl's draw ability. I think this could definitely make a mono-black deck that focuses on getting Massacre Girl value pop up, but I can see her played in many more black mid-range decks too. Now, if only Massacre Girl had a Meathook Massacre to play with. But maybe it's better that that's not a possibility in Standard. I still absolutely love this card though. And last but not least for black, we have Case of the Stashed Skeleton, a 2-mana enchantment case. That when it enters the battlefield, you create a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it. Now to solve the case, you have to control no suspected skeletons, and once it's solved, you can pay the activated cost of 1 in the black and sacrifice this case. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle.
Okay.
Activate only as a sorcery. So this skeleton token makes a nice sacrifice target for bargain effects, and once you solve the case, you can pay the cost and activate the last ability whenever you need to tutor up a card for 2 mana. Seems very solid and does a lot
It's
for
pretty
what it does,
good.
and I can see Reckless decks or maybe even a mono black pick this up easily.
It's pretty decent.
Now let's
I
move
might
on to
add that.
red, and
I
red
might
has
add that
definitely
one.
gotten some
I'm
very
not
powerful
sure.
cards in Murders at Karlov Manor. Let me show you my top 5. First up in red, we have Case of the Crimson Poles, a 3-mana enchantment case that when it enters the battlefield, you discard a card and then you draw 2 cards. To solve the case, you have to have no cards in your hand, and once the case is solved, at the beginning of your upkeep, you discard your hand and
cards
then you
in
draw
my
2
hand.
cards. Now this card will be solid in aggressive red decks that can get rid of cards in their hand quickly so you can solve the case easily.
Yeah.
Because once this case is solved, the card just seems nuts. It provides you with 2 cards next to the cards that you draw in your draw step as long as this enchantment is on the board. That means 3 cards drawn a turn. It's a great way for cheap red-based aggro decks to not run out of gas, and it works greatly with Inti as well, which is a nice bonus. And then we have one of the most hilarious arts on a magic card that I've ever seen, Frantic Scapegoat. And this card has a new
jeez.
keyword, which is Suspect. A suspected creature has menace and
I
can
only
block
took
for as long as
them
it remains suspected. Now this is a 1-mana 1/1
Probably
creature
over a
goat with
decade,
haste,
but we
and when it
finally
enters
got the
battlefield,
Screaming
you
Goat.
suspect it. Whenever 1 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if Frantic Scapegoat is suspected, you may suspect one of the other creatures. And if you do, Frantic Scapegoat is no longer suspected. Now, a 1-mana 1/1 with Menace and Haste is already solid, and giving a powerful 2-drop Menace for the rest of the game when you play the Goat on turn 1 can be really helpful. I can see this card curve
Wait,
out
where do
nicely with Felden,
do
for
they have
instance.
Menace?
You can also hold a card and give something like Adeline Menace in a Boros aggro deck. I'm not sure how this slots in the red aggro at the moment, but once Commander rotates, I can easily see this take the card spot. I can definitely see red mages experiment with this guy the second it comes out though. Next up, we have Fugitive Codebreaker. Now this card has the Disguise ability, and if a card has Disguise, you can cast it face down for 3 mana. It becomes a face down creature spell, which means it's colorless, it's a 2/2, it has no name or creature types, and it has Ward 2. Anytime you have priority, you can turn a face-down permanent you control face-up by paying its disguise cost. Now, it's important to remember that turning a permanent face-up does not cause it to re-enter the battlefield.
Okay.
Now, Fugitive Codebreaker is a
That
2-mana
is really good to
2/1
know.
goblin rogue creature with prowess and haste, and it has disguise 6. This cost is reduced by 1 though for each
Oh,
instant and sorcery
okay.
card in your graveyard.
That makes
When
sense.
Fugitive Codebreaker is turned face-up, you discard your hand and then you draw 3
This card in
cards.
my hand.
Now, a 2-mana 2/1 with prowess and haste is already sweet for red aggro decks, and the current version of red aggro works with a good
I mean,
amount
I don't
of
really
instants
like
and sorceries,
red,
which can be great
so-
for discounting the disguise cost as well on this little goblin. Now, this card seems great on curve and also makes for a fantastic top deck thanks to its disguise ability.
I can't do anything.
I can see red aggro experimenting with a full playset of this card. Up next, we have Pyrotechnic Performer, a 2-mana 3/2 creature Vishino Assassin that also has a disguise cost for 1 red. And when Pyrotechnic Performer or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So I like that this is a 2-mana 3/2, which are powerful stats for a
That's pretty
2-drop.
good, yeah.
What I also like about this card is that it works great in multiples. If you flip a Performer face up with a Performer already on the board, it will deal 6 damage. Now I like that you can cast this creature
Oh,
on
yeah.
2 if you need a 2-drop, and disguising it on turn 3 to create a 2/2 with War 2 isn't bad if it means
Pretty
you can flip the
good.
creature the next turn to deal
That's
3
really
damage
good.
to your opponent for 1 mana. It might be
Wow.
a card that will see more play after rotation, but I think it's a card with a lot of potential already.
That's
And
really
last,
cool.
but certainly not least for red, we have Krenko, Baron of Tin Street, a 3-mana 3/3 legendary creature goblin with haste, and an
Krenko.
activated ability for which you have to tap Krenko and sacrifice an artifact. When you do that, put a 1/1 counter on each goblin you control. And whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay red. If you do, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That
So you
gains
can
haste
use
until end of
clue
turn.
tokens
Now, a 3-mana
with that.
3/3 with haste is already nice, but Krenko does so much, there's no way it's not powerful enough to see standard play. There's a lot of goblins in standard right now that synergize with artifacts and sacrificing artifacts, but that deck kind of lacks a punch, and I think Krenko can provide that punch.
Goblin.
Also, don't
Okay.
forget that Gleeful Demolition does put 3 goblin tokens on the battlefield, and we still have Goblin, Lord, or Runfeld Hordemaster in standard too. And last but not least, it's time to look at the best 5 green cards that Murders at Karlov Manor will bring to standard.
I
First
don't
up,
know
we
if they'll have
Aftermath
enough
Analyst.
dinosaurs.
This is a 2-mana 1/3 elf detective creature that when it enters the battlefield you mill 3 cards. It also has an activated ability for which you have to pay 4 mana and sacrifice Aftermath Analyst to return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Now this card is probably one of the best self-mill enabling creature cards we have in standard right now. A 1-mana 1/3 that mills 3 is just great, and the activated ability that brings back all land cards from your graveyard is a fantastic bonus. I can see this in
That is pretty
Golgari or
good.
Sultai self-mill decks, and these
Right.
decks are
I
getting
don't
very
like
nice
self-mill.
upgrades in Murders at Karlov Manor. Now next up we have Axbane Ferox, a 4-mana 4/4 creature beast with Death Touch, Haste, and Ward, and the ward cost is Collect Evidence 4. Now a 4-mana 4/4 with Death Touch, Haste, and Ward seems great for your average green-colored Stompy or aggressive decks. I think the ward cost is very interesting on this creature too, since you need to be able to collect 4 evidence to target this creature. I truly wonder if
That's
this card
cool.
can make Mono Green Stompy return to standard, and I truly hope it will. Next up, we have Case of the Locked Hothouse, a
I love
4-mana
that.
enchantment case, where the first ability reads you may play an additional land on each of your turns. In order to solve the case, you have to control 7 or more lands, and once the case is solved, you may look at the top cards of your library anytime, and you may play lands and cast creature and enchantment spells from the top of your library. Now, this card seems insane in domain decks, and once the case is solved, I think it will make your
So
Decker
good.
deck unstoppable till the case
I
is
need that in
removed.
my
You
dinosaur
definitely
deck.
see play in domain after rotation, but I wouldn't be surprised if domain players are going to experiment with this card.
I
the second
want
it comes
this
out.
done in
Solve
my
case just
dinosaur
allows
deck.
domain to cast nearly every card
That'd
in
be
their deck.
cool.
And then we have Sharp-Eyed Rookie, a 2-mana 2/2 creature human detective with vigilance, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if its power is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's power, or its toughness is greater than Sharp-Eyed Rookie's toughness, put a 1/1 counter on Sharp-Eyed Rookie and investigate. Now, a 2-mana 2/2 that keeps growing in the right deck and also gives you a clue token for your efforts seems solid. It also carries the human creature card for decks that
multicolor,
care about
okay.
that. Now this card has that 1/1 counter synergy that could make it sweet with Botanical Brawler, and Evolving Adaptive is also
Yeah.
still in the meta. A green-white Stompy deck with 1/1 counter synergy is so close to being good, and Sharp-Eyed Rookie can be the
Green-white
upgrade it
Stompy.
needs, especially
Is that
with
the
Luthor
trample
Stani card
decks?
coming out too, and I wouldn't be surprised if a
I don't
Celestia
know
deck
all the
pops up
lingo
because of
yet,
this.
bro.
This can also put in work to revive Mono Green Stompy in standard. I really hope this card helps these archetypes become strong enough. It definitely does a lot for 2 mana. And last up for green, we have Rubble Belt Maverick, a 1-mana 1/1 human detective creature that when it enters the battlefield surveils 2. It also has an activated ability, which you have to exile Rubble Belt Maverick from your graveyard for, and pay a green, and once you do that, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery. Now this can be a sweet 1-drop in Golgari Graveyard or Descent decks. It's just a nice card, and Surveil 2 is better than Mill 2. It just does a lot for 1 mana, and I think
Golgari
it'll do a good job at
Graveyard?
giving
What does
green
that
Descent and
mean?
Graveyard decks the help it needs.
What does
Now,
that
I won't lie to
mean?
you,
Is that
I
like
was
a
also very
deck
heavily considering putting
name?
Picture Poison in this slot, but I think Atraxas Fall is
What
more of a
does that
standard
mean? I
card.
don't
Just
know.
for 1 mana extra, you can choose what permanent to take out, rather than having your opponent sacrifice one. And green decks in standard are okay with paying 1 more for such a card, with less risk of it not hitting
Look
the
at
card
that
you
tiger.
needed to hit.
6 eyes.
Alright, so there are a lot of multicolored cards in the new set, and this means many good multicolored cards. So we're going to have a look at what I think will be the 10 best cards for standard
10?
and multicolor instead. And let's start
Ooh.
multicolored off with a banger and praise the almighty Mole God, because first up is Enzrag the Quake Mole, a 4-mana
Oh,
8/4
God.
legendary creature Mole God. And whenever
Mole
Enzrag
God?
is blocked, untap each creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. You can also activate its ability for 7 mana, and if you do this, Enzrak must be blocked each combat this turn if able. So this card is kind of insane, especially when combined with a card that gives haste like Restless Stormseeker. The second you block this mole, you are screwed, because you give your opponent another combat phase while they also untap all their creatures, so they can just swing at you again with full force. It's almost always 8 damage to the face when it attacks, and demands removal the second it comes down. A super powerful pickup for Gruul aggro. Next up, we have Assassin's
wild.
Trophy, a 2-mana instant that destroys a target permanent an opponent controls. Its controller may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Now this card is a reprint, but back when it was a standard, it was a fantastic removal spell for Golgari decks, and I think this will hold up. It's going to be especially punishing to be targeted by this spell if your deck plays little to no basic lands. And next we have Izoni, Center of the Web, a 6-mana 5/4 legendary creature elf detective with menace, and whenever Izoni, Center of the Web enters the battlefield or attacks, you may collect evidence 4. If you do, create 2 2/1 black and green spider creature tokens with menace and reach. There's also an activated ability that requires you to sacrifice
I'm gonna
4
say
tokens,
spiders
when you
and
do
no
this, use
reach.
a
What I'm
draw
gonna
2,
say.
draw 2 cards and
Kind of
gain 2 life.
useless.
Now I am very excited about this card. For 6 mana, it puts 9 power on the board with the help of the spider tokens with menace and reach. And that part of the card truly reminds me of Loth, who was a great planeswalker before the card rotated. I think especially when you can curve out playing a Blossom and Turtles on 4 into a Zoe on 5, it's going to be super powerful. If any combination of colors can make use of collecting evidence, it will be Golgari. I think the activated ability can also be
What does
sweet with
Golgari
Sentinel
mean?
City. I see this card as a few copies at the top end in
I
Golgari
don't know what
mid-range, and I
Golgari
think it's going to be
means.
putting in a lot of work in a deck.
Is
despite
that like
costing 6
the
mana.
name of a
Next up, we
deck?
have
I
Nazaf,
don't
Wearer
know.
of Faces, a 2-mana 2/3 legendary
Here we
creature
go.
shapeshifter detective. And whenever Lazaf attacks, you exile a target card from a graveyard, then investigate. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, you may have Lazaf become a copy of a creature card exiled with it until end of turn. Now a 2-mana 2/3 packed with Graveyard Hate that simultaneously generates clues for you is already amazing, but the fact that Lazaf turns into a copy of whatever creature you have exiled with it till end of turn when you sacrifice a clue is what make the card nuts. It does so much for a 2-drop,
Oh,
and it's really nicely
exiled,
in the Esper
okay.
mid-range or the Mirror mid-range. This card is super powerful. And then we have
Yeah.
Lightning Helix, a 2-mana instant spell that deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life.
Damn.
A Lightning Helix is another powerful reprint and will definitely see play in all Boros decks in Standard, and make them a lot stronger when it's included. I wonder if this card could make a Boros burn deck pop up in Standard, or maybe even some Jeskai control deck. And then we have No More Lies, a 2-mana instant that counters a target spell unless its controller pays 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. And all I can say about this card is thanks, I hate it. Up next we have Breakout, a 2-mana sorcery that looks at the top 6 cards of your
I
library.
mean,
You may reveal a creature card from among
okay,
on
since
them.
she didn't
First
say
tip,
anything
if that
about
spell
it,
is a 2-mana edit or maybe
I
even
guess
some
I
Jeskai
will.
control deck. And then we have No More Lies, a 2-mana instant that counters a target spell unless its controller pays 3. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. And all
yeah,
I can say about this card is thanks.
that's wild. Cause target spell means, I believe that means anything. So, yeah. Thanks, I hate it. Yeah. Thanks, I hate it too. White blue. I think I have a white blue deck. From one of my drafting things, I don't know.
I hate it. Up next, we have Breakout, a 2-mana sorcery that looks at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them. If that card has mana value 2 or less, you may put it onto the battlefield and it gains haste until end of turn. If you didn't put the revealed card onto the battlefield this way, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So
Bottom,
this card, looking
not
at
the
6 cards,
graveyard.
makes it dig pretty deep and gives it a high chance of finding whatever creature you wanted to find for you. This card can put Picnic Ruiner on the board with haste, which seems crazy good for that deck. If you miss on hitting a 2-drop or lower, it's still not too bad to put a creature in your hand that you've selected out of 6 cards.
That's
with 2
pretty
mana.
good.
But I think a lot of Gruul aggro decks, and especially the Picnic Ruiner deck, is going to be very happy with this card. Up next,
Oh,
we have
is that a
Tristani
card?
Three Whispers, a 3-mana 4/4 legendary creature dryad with 3 activated abilities. The first activated ability gives a target creature Death Touch until end of turn. The second activated ability gives a target creature Vigilance until end of turn.
Ooh.
And the third activated ability gives a target creature Double Strike until end of turn. Now as a 3 mana 4/4, this card is already great, and it has so many versatile activated abilities that it should feel like an auto-include in any creature-based Selesnya deck. I hope this
That's
card is going to be
pretty-
powerful
that's
enough to
pretty
put
cool.
Selesnya back in the meta. It can also be potentially sweet in an Abzan Legends deck with cards like Thalia and the Gidrock Monster, and Valera the Living Cure. And then we have Tomik, Wielder of Law, a 3 mana 2/4 legendary creature, human advisor, with affinity for planeswalkers, flying, and vigilance.
Hey!
Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of the
Alright, we're back.
those creatures
After
are
this
attacking
video, I'm
you
gonna
and
head
all
out.
planeswalkers you control, that opponent loses 3 life and you draw a card. Now, a 3 mana 2/4 with flying and vigilance is pretty sweet, but then you have the incredible ability on there that makes you heavily benefit if your opponent attacks you with 2 or more creatures. Now, Standard is quite a creature-heavy format, and I feel Tomik will very easily make your opponent lose 3 life while you draw a card if not removed. Now, this card slots super easily into Esper midrange or Esper flyers, but I can also see it become important in a new Orzhov human deck with Dalny. This card is just great for any creature deck that's in white and black. And last up, for multicolored, I have to talk about some nice multicolor pickups for my precious Simic deck, if you know you know. And first up, we have Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. Now, Kellen is a 4 mana 3/4 legendary creature, human fairy detective with flying and vigilance. And whenever Kellen attacks, destroy up to 1 target artifact. If you control that permanent, draw a card. There's also an adventure side on there, which allows you to investigate, and you can then also play an additional land this turn. Now, I like that the adventure side
Same
gives you an
mana.
artifact and clue and ramps you up, but the best thing about Kellen is by far the creature side. The flying and vigilance on a 4 mana 3/4 is okay, but the fact that Kellen can turn your map or food tokens into card draw seems very sweet. Kellen can also remove your opponent's artifact if you need to get rid of it. For instance, a subterranean schooner or a soul cauldron can be good targets. I will definitely try a few copies of Kellen at the top end in my Simic deck. And last up, we have Repulsive Mutation. For X, a green and a blue, you have an instant spell that puts X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, then counter up to 1 target spell unless its controller plays
Pretty
mana
good.
equal to the
Pretty
greatest
decent.
power among creatures you control. Now, this is just a fantastic counterspell that can also buff up your creatures with 1/1 counters. It seems like it will do great in the Simic deck, and I think it's going to replace Disruption Protocol immediately when the card comes out. The counterspells in Murders at Karlov Manor are looking great. So now it's time to talk about the lands, and in this set we are getting the Surveil lands in all the guild colors. Let's have a look at Underground Mortuary, for example.
Ooh.
So these Surveil lands all carry basic land types. This one has Swamp Forest.
You can
Underground
surveil?
Mortuary enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield you get the Surveil 1. So the obvious downside to these lands is that they come in play tapped, and this is a pretty great downside. What I do like about them is that they interact nicely with cards that care about basic land types, This is the case for the domain ability, for instance. Now, I don't think these Surveil lands will see a lot of play till standard rotation happens and we lose the new Capenna Triomes and the Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt slow lands. It will then probably see play in a domain deck. But perhaps, in the current standard meta, there are decks that care about triggering Descent, or just have really bad mana bases that might already want to play these Surveil lands. Now, another card that I want to mention is Scene of the Crime. This is an artifact land and clue. Scene of the Crime enters the battlefield tapped and can be tapped for colorless, and you can then also tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. The land can also be sacrificed if you pay 2 and then you draw a card. So this land can also pay for its own activated ability, which is neat. But I really like the fact that this is an artifact land, which can be relevant in artifact decks. Adding 1 mana of any color type of creature can also be sweet in creature decks that don't have great land bases. And once again, I am not sure if this will see a lot of play before rotation, but I definitely like it the best out of all lands that we've gotten from Murders at Karlov Manor. Murders at Karlov Manor releases on MTG Arena February 6th, but you can already play with the new cards during pre-release events at your local game store February 2nd till 4th. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this mini set review from Murders at Karlov Manor, where I talk about the best cards from Murders in Standard. Also, if you enjoyed what you've seen so far, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, but me, do my channel, not theirs. Do mine. Me, I run it. I'm not getting any bundles. Alright. That's all I have for me today. Probably be live again tomorrow. Doing more competitive stuff. But yeah, follow me on Twitter, follow me on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. Really TTV on most of those platforms. Alright, have a great rest of your night.